Hey guys, Glenn here from Hammond's Hobbies. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying the hobby, whatever you're getting up to. So today's just like a quick chat video. Just wanted to give you guys my thoughts on something that's been bugging me for a little while. I wanted to talk about some of my frustrations with grading with PSA at the moment and what I'm going to do about it going forward. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. This is, I know it's just me talking at you, but if you want to comment down below, join the social media, send me a message on Instagram or join the WhatsApp group, they should all be in the description of this video. So, a couple of frustrations I've got with grading with PSA at the moment. One is I used to grade with PSA by myself, and I've graded thousands of cards with PSA, almost probably in the tens of thousands over the course of the last 3 years. You guys that watch me regularly know that I normally have hundreds of PSA slabs, and I'm always running them in whatnot sales starting from £1. And then obviously I like to keep, you know, certain ones myself and my own PC. That's what I like to do as a collector. I've always graded with PSA because I've always thought they hold the best value in the market and they're the most trusted service around the world. And it's easier to list a PSA card on eBay because most people search PSA in their search results when they're looking for graded cards. So I've always graded with PSA. Some of the challenges of that are obviously you have to send them all the way to America from being someone from the UK. They're slightly higher on their fees and they're slightly slower with their delivery times. But for 2025, obviously we've had the Donald Trump tariffs, and I don't really care what you think about Donald Trump or anything. I don't want to get into that. But the tariffs have come into place, and now PSA have shut down all international submissions unless you use one of their preferred partners, like in the UK, Subcentre and Fanatic Store in London. Now, I have no preference between them two. Probably Subcentre, probably know a bit more than Fanatic Store, but I'm always at the Fanatic Store, so I always go there because they've always got promotions on. I buy sealed product from them, so it makes sense for me to just drop off some cards and submit them while I'm there. One of the frustrations with submitting with the Fanatic Store, not that any of these other issues are nothing to do with Fanatics, obviously this is a PSA issue that I've got, but one thing that I don't like is that when I used to submit with PSA, I used to obviously have the app and I could be not in control, but monitor every stage of what's going on. Whereas with the Fanatic Store, you basically get an email when you hand them the cards to say, we have received your cards. And that's it. You get nothing. You get nothing on the PSA app. You get an email when they arrive from Fanatic saying, your cards are now with us. Please come in and pick them up and pay for them. So that's a little bit frustrating. That's one gripe I've got with the Fanatic Store themselves. Everything else, this is a PSA issue. So I've got here 102 PSA graded card submission. And one of the issues that I've got, and this is a me issue. This isn't for everybody in the UK, but I'm based in the Midlands. So if you imagine this PSA slab as a map of the UK. London is down here. It's actually more over this way. And I'm based sort of over here in Doncaster. So I have to get the train down or drive. Both of those ways cost money. The train's about 100 quid for a return, sometimes 150 depending on peak times. And the drive would probably cost about 50 quid in fuel, but then I'd have to pay parking and stuff. But anyway, that's a Glen issue. So now I'm having to pay to travel to London and back to make this submission and then to pick it up again. So it's costing me almost £300 in dropping it off and picking it up in just travelling costs, yeah? So that's one issue. That's just a Glen issue. Second is that obviously Fanatics need to submit cards and put their bit on top. So I used to submit with PSA, and when they did offers for like $15, in UK money, that's about £11 to £12. So when I used to submit some of my cards starting from £1, you know, as long as they went for 15 quid, I'm £4 in profit. Yeah. So if I sold a card on whatnot, minus their fees, I used to earn £4 profit. Now, when you're submitting 100 cards, you know, that's £400 profit. That's pretty good, you know, decent day's work. Obviously, you hope that you earn more than that if there's PSA 10s in there and high-end cards, so you have to be selective with what you graded. But at those sort of fees, I used to submit almost anything, because I used to like having a wide range of drivers, because my audience all support a different driver, you know, so I'd like to submit a bit of everything. Well, now the grading fees, obviously, they went up. PSA was starting to charge about $18 to $19. I believe they still are now. Sometimes they'd have offers on, because I used to pay £100 a year to be their collector club. So you would get offers for like $18 to $19, which in our money is about £14, £15, depending on the conversion rate on the day. So the grading fees have gone up, but boo-hoo, that's what it is. Prices always go up. Well, obviously, Fanatics now, obviously they need to add on their bit on top, which again, I've got no gripes with. Fanatics have to make their money. But this is just, I'm telling you where I'm coming from and where we're at today. Today, we're at £18.50 per card. That means that I need to sell each one of these graded cards minimum for, through Whatnot, £21, because if I do £21 minus, it's 10.9% fees, let's call it 11%, there you go, that just breaks even. So realistically, I need to start the auctions at £21, and I need to hope that people outbid each other, and this goes for 25, 26, 27, 30 quid, so that I've earned that bit in between, to make it worthwhile. Now, some of you will hear that and go, well, good, I'm glad you don't earn no profit. I don't like people making profit in my hobby, blah, 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 blah. And I get that. I understand that. But the consequence of that is, if I'm losing £500-600 on this whole thing, guess what? I'm then going to say, right, I'm not grading anymore. There's no point me doing it. I'll just grade the ones that I like. So that means that a lot of these graded cards, and for some people in the UK and especially in Europe, they don't have an option to grade. So for some people, me selling cards, especially starting at £1, that's their only way that they're going to get hold of graded cards, or buying through eBay. Again, some people in the UK don't have, in Europe, sorry, don't have access to eBay at all. So that market's not available to them, but Whatnot is. So for some people, it's a must. Or even on my own website, you know, people can buy through my website that can't necessarily access eBay. So that means that I've got two options: either stop grading at all, or put the price up that I'm selling these for. So instead of starting them at £1, start them all minimum £21. That's my options. And that's not the end of the world. Like, you know, I can do that, and I can probably try and justify it. So that's price. I hope I've made that clear, yeah? So I've got to travel to drop these off and pick them up. I don't get to keep an eye on any of the process at all, so I don't know what's going on. The third thing that's frustrating is that their grading times have gone up. So whatever they quote now, you can almost double it. And in some cases, like 1,000x it. I'll explain in a second. But with a lot of these, they quote sort of 90 days. Well, this submission here, I made in April. So this has taken, we're now going into the 5th/6th month. So these are double what initially I thought they were. And I used to get my graded cards back when I submitted them direct. I used to get them back for within 2 to 3 months. Now, again, that's not a Fanatics thing. I'm not blaming Fanatics. It's PSA. I know it's PSA because it's the same for everybody. So I know it's a PSA thing. So you're waiting longer. I've got to travel, and the price has gone up, and you get no updates in the middle of that process. Okay, so you just wait. You just got to wait months and months and months, and just hope that nothing's gone missing. But this is the thing that's really bothered me probably the most. The thing that's frustrated me the most is that PSA, in the last sort of 8 months or so, they put out an announcement, and I announced this on my Instagram video, like I did an Instagram reel about it. They have increased their difficulty of getting a PSA 10. They said that they were going to change the centering criteria from a 60-40 split, meaning that it could be a little bit off-centered, 60-40 left or right or up or down by a 60-40 margin. So it doesn't have to be exactly 50-50. Now they've changed it to 55-45% split. So almost 50-50. It has to be almost perfect centering, which you could say, well, that's a good thing. It means a 10 is a 10-10, you know. But whereas with like Beckett's and BGS, you can get like a BGS Black Label Pristine 10. Now they sell for a lot more than normal 10s. They sell for sometimes 4 to 6x. I know that's not always the case, but I'm just saying in some cases they sell for 4 to 6x whatever a 10 sells for. So if you had a BGS 10 of a Lewis Hamilton, and then you had a Lewis Hamilton BGS Black Label Pristine 10, that would sell for 6 times more potentially than the Beckett's 10. PSA, on the other hand, obviously, if we look at, say, a PSA 10 card, like if we look at, say, this Fernando Alonso, World's Finest, black out of 25, this is a PSA 10. How would I know that this is any different from one from last year? Now, in the Pokemon world, I've seen them talk about videos where they're actually looking at the submission number and they know what the last submission number was before PSA increased the difficulty. So they know whether, right, this is based on the new criteria, but that nobody's going to monitor that. You'd have to be pretty hardcore to monitor that. But if PSA had done something like, said, look, we're making it harder to get a 10, but we're going to put a little gold text or a little something, just saying to distinguish it, I think they would go for a lot more money. But these, as they are, with the same labelling and everything, how do I know this is any different from one that was submitted in November, December last year? You don't. So I don't see them going for way more money now. And I'm sure other people in the hobby can back me up with that. When you're getting a PSA 10 back now, you're not seeing these go for 6x. What I don't think they're even going for 10% more than what they would have normally have done. So you're not seeing that uplift of the difficulty of them increasing it. But what you are seeing, and I want to show you guys this is what it means in real world, because I could go through this submission and go, oh, look, out of these 100, I only got 20 PSA 10s. And you could say, well, that's just unlucky, you know, maybe the next time. But I want to show you literally a direct comparison of the same cards from the same set, the same box, everything. And not just one submission, 40 submissions compared to the new difficulty increase. So here I have a set of 2020 Topps Chrome F1 refractors, numbers 1 to 200, all 200 of them here. I bought these off a gentleman in Germany, and what I noticed about them was they look really clean. So when I got these, I look at them under a microscope, and I think, oh, there's no scratches, no dinks, no dents, no bits of dirt, no muck. I thought, oh, they're pretty clean, actually. And all of them were sleeved individually. So I thought, oh, the guy's obviously really took care of them. He's obviously opened up a case of Chrome 2020, and he's put the whole set together of refractors and listed it on eBay. It was in Germany, and I bought it for £700 to £1,000. I can't remember the exact amount off the top of my head. But what I did was I decided to submit the first sort of 20 cards. Now, the first 20 cards are the main driver portraits. These are the most valuable cards in the set, bar the image variations. So I submitted the first 20. And here were the results. Now, bearing in mind, this was mid last year, and I got these back probably towards the end of last year. We got Lewis Hamilton in a PSA 10. We got Bottas 10, Vettel 9, Leclerc 8, Albon 8, and then we move into most of these being 10s. Lando Norris 10, Sainz 10, Danny Ricciardo 10, Ocon 10, Gasly 9, boo, Kvyat 10, Perez 10, Stroll 10, Raikkonen 10, Giovinazzi 10, Grosjean 10, K-Mag 10, George Russell 10, Latifi 10. So out of these 20 submissions, about 4 of them have come back 9s, and then there was an 8 in there. So 16 of them are PSA 10 out of 20. Well, then I made once I got them back, I thought, wow, I got really lucky with them. I've got the whole set here. Should I submit the next 20? So that's what I did. I submitted the next 20 images in the set, which were these ones here. And again, I got these back at the end of last year. So we got, these are now the F1 drivers, but in their cars. So we got Lewis Hamilton, 10, Raikkonen, 10, Perez, 10, Lando, 10, Bottas, 10, Grosjean, 10, Max Verstappen, 10, Ricciardo, 10, Kevin Magnussen, 9, boo, George Russell, 10, Bottas, 10, Leclerc, 9, Latifi, 10, Stroll, 10, Kvyat, 10, Antonio Giovinazzi, 9, Gasly, 10, Ocon, 10. So again, out of these 20, about 3 or 4 of them were 9s. The rest were all 10s. So that's 2 lots of submissions there. 40 cards. And then I've just got 2 more that I submitted, actually. A McLaren logo and Lewis, both 10s. All from this set. So all stored the same way, sleeved the same way, from the same boxes, from the same case. They were, I assume, cut the same way. So you would imagine this next submission that I made, which I made this year, sort of March, April this year, which I've only just received these back, taken 6 months to come back. And bearing in mind now, I've paid £18.50 for these, whereas some of these I only paid 11 quid for. So I've paid more for this. And these are the results. Now PSA, as of 2025, have increased their difficulty rating to get a PSA 10. This is what it looks like in real world. Giotto, 10. Delatraz, 10. Marklov, 10. Dan Ticktum, 10. And then I'm going to spoil it here. The rest are all 9s. We got Mick Schumacher, 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 8. We got an 8 there. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9, 9. So out of 20 next submissions from the same cards, came from the same way, the same case, the same box, stored the same way, submitted the same way, we now have complete roles reverse. We now have 16 9s, 4 10s. That means in my opinion, the 10s, forget that they're F2 drivers. I'm just saying, if you submitted a load of, I don't know, Lewis Hamilton's out of 99, the 10s should be worth a lot more than they were last year, because they're now less common. They're rarer. They're harder to hit. But I'm not seeing that in the F1 community. I'm not seeing that in sales. I don't know about maybe other sellers. I'd love, if you're watching this as a F1 card seller, I'd love to hear your thoughts. It just means, though, that in terms of as a business or doing this, you know, for a full-time living, going back to these 102 card submission that I've made, for me to actually make profit out of this, you hope that the 10s go for more money than the 9s and the 8s. But remember, I'm paying a higher cost for this submission, but the amount of 10s are now less. Now that would be fine if those 10s that sold for way more money, because everybody now knows it's harder to get a 10. But I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing people going, wow, that's a PSA 10 of Senna. Yeah, I'll pay 150, 200 quid for it. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing people going, you know, oh, one sold raw for $30, so that's probably worth $60. And I'm like, well, you could submit 5 of that same card to PSA and you'll be lucky if one of them come back at 10, which if you do 5 times £18.50 is £92.50. It would cost you almost 100 quid to hope, fingers crossed, that one of them come back at 10. Now you might get lucky and 4 of them might come back at 10, but I'm not seeing that based on my submission. This is 102 cards and I would say about 20, 25 of these have come back 10s. The rest are all 9s. So, whereas I think if I'd submitted this same submission 8 months ago, I think it would be the other way around. I think 20 of them would be 9s and 8s. The rest of them would all be 10s. I check every single card under a microscope with an LED light. You know, I'm really careful with my submissions. And the thicker style cards, I can tell you, especially as somebody who submits from the UK, because this was a UK exclusive release, F1 lights out. I've seen somebody submit 30 of these, and he paid the premium to get them back quicker. So he got his back before me. And he shared his results with me, and every single one of them did not come back a 10. Every single one. So he's got 30 F1 lights out now that are all 7s, 8s, 9. Now, I've only had back these 4. I've actually submitted more, but I'm waiting for them to come back. But I'm finding the same thing. If I show you this sample, 8, 7, 9, 8. Not one of them have come back a 10. And I pulled these all pack fresh myself, sleeved them and submitted them. So that means that for me to break even on this submission, I need to sell the 10s, which are a smaller selection of 10s, for way more money. 2 options are either upcharge my customers. So instead of running everything from £1, I say to people, look, I have to start at minimum £21 just to break even, because by the time you minus off the whatnot fees, it gets me £18.60. So that's 10p above what I paid. Or don't grade with PSA at all. The alternatives are MGC here in the UK. They charge lower fees to grade, and they have quicker turnaround times. So that means that, say, like, for example, this submission here, a lot of these are F1 lights out and Finest. Finest came out sort of like April time. Now we're 6 months later. The heat for the set has died down a bit. So you're losing that premium that you would get probably at the start of a set release, because everyone's chasing 10s and stuff at the time. So you've lost that opportunity now. So now you just have to hope that the smaller of selection of 10s that you've got sell for a premium, even though the set isn't as hot as it once was. So that's more challenging. So I'm thinking maybe change over to MGC here in the UK, which is a shame, because I've, you know, over the last few years, I've submitted thousands of cards with PSA, thousands. And I might have to call it quits, because it's not making sense like in a personal collection way, and it's not making sense in a business way. So even if I could get, I don't know, let's just say, for example, if MGC, if I could get them to do £12 a slab, even if the cards don't sell for as much as PSAs, if I have an MGC 10 and it sells for, I don't know, £15, well, by the time you factor off the £12 fee, you're £3 up straight away. Whereas for the PSA ones, I've got to be selling them for £21 just to break even. So that's to earn, well, if I minus off £18.50, to earn 40p. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think. Comment down below or drop me a message. I'd love to hear your thoughts. This was just a quick chat style video. Sorry about all the background noise and the lower quality, but it's just saying that I just felt I wanted to chat about quickly today without having to edit a full video and everything. I'm going to still run these obviously on whatnot, starting from £1, and if I take a loss on it, I take a loss on it. But obviously every time that you make a loss on a submission, it then makes you think, well, one, in the future, I'm going to be very selective over what I submit. So I can't submit one of each driver anymore. I have to literally only submit Max, Lewis, Leclerc, Oscar, Lando. That's it. Anyone else, you're not breaking even on. Or low numbered parallels. But even those, like low numbered F2s, you're not breaking even from that. You're not selling them for 20 quid. Even some of these autos, I'm not getting 30, 40 quid. These cost 30 quid. So PSA charge 30 quid. I'm not getting 30 quid for any of these. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. One of them's got a 10 at Iwasa, but again, he's from 2023. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's even in F2. So I'm probably not going to get 30 quid for that either. So I'm probably going to lose money on all the autos as well. So I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If if, like I say, PSA were they don't even need to be. I just want them to do what, you know, what you've paid for. If they say 3 months, I want it back in 3 months. If they say 4 months, I want it back in 4 months. If they say 6 months, then I can go, oh, I don't know if I want it back in 6 months. All right, I'll pay the little bit extra. But at the minute, it's just you submit it and you just don't. Now, I know years ago, people had to wait a couple of years with PSA, and I hope we don't go back to those sort of territories. But it's seriously making me think that I'm just not going to submit with PSA at all. Because I'm not seeing the return on it, and now with their difficulty increased grading, I'm not even getting the 10s that I would normally get. So I've got a smaller sample to break even on, to try, you know, when you're making losses and all the rest. So yeah, what do you guys think? Comment down below, join the Facebook group, obviously join the WhatsApp group if you want. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If there's anything I'm missing or anything you'd like to point me in the right direction of, please, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I do read all of your comments. That's it from me. If you want to join me on a Whatnot sale, I will be running all of these starting from £1. You can get £10 of free credit when you use the link in the description down below. That's it from me, guys. Hope you enjoyed that little chat, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.